Well, thanks for taking the time to join me on a short but impactful rant and blaze. As we've seen the last couple of weeks, society as a whole has reared itself on its hindquarters, so to speak, at the level of anger and vitriol that is being exhibited around the world in protests and exhibitions. The concept of police brutality is not anything new. For several decades, police brutality has been out of hand, out of control, so to speak. Those of us of a certain age demographic will vividly remember the violence associated with the riots after Rodney King was acquitted back in the early 90s. And here we are today. We have the Antifa radical protesters taking up the cause of this, that, and the other thing, instilling with it a degree of fucking violence and vitriol that is unheard of. Now, for two protests in a row for Black Lives Matter down in Vancouver, there is an alternative media source that I've followed for about 6 years now called Press for Truth. I've actually met the fellow that is Press for Truth, Dan Dix. That guy's got some parts on him. That guy has balls the size of bowling balls for the ability to immerse himself into hot topics. We're talking going to Bilderberg conferences around the world. We're talking about having his finger on the pulse of what's going on with the powers that not ought to be. Back in 2010, sitting out on Vancouver Island, doing my thing, chirping about the injustices that are happening and talking and trying to educate people about what was going on in relation to the G20 conference that was being held in Toronto that year. Huge economic conference where they basically, for X amount of city square blocks, suspended any rights that we as a Canadian would have, basically instilled martial law. They were kettling groups of people that were coming out of theaters, out of restaurants, peaceful protesters. There was Asian provocateurs. People that were arrested were thrown in fucking cages for 2 or 3 weekends over the course of that economic conference. And you know the fuck what? Dan Dix was there, front and fucking center. He's got a movie called Into the Fire that he released a few years after that documents the fucking level of just social injustice going on by the powers that not ought to be. So here you have a guy that's showing the inequalities of the fucking system, and he has for a very long time, and he's giving support for the Black Lives Matter thing, the George Floyd fucking shit. He's bringing you information and knowledge, and he's doing it in an unbiased way where basically he's trying to get you to think, to critically think. The man doesn't have a hateful bone in his body. He's not racist in any way, shape, or form. And as I mentioned, I don't know him personally, but I have met him. But I do personally know some of his peer group. And these are people of a very upstanding, salt of the earth caliber. These are people that hold the values of family and equality for every fucking buddy. There's not a racist bone in any of these individuals' fucking bodies, yet here we are seeing on the mainstream media or through YouTube with these fucking Antifa head cases that they're targeting Dan specifically, not having an iota of his history or his backstory. When he's asking them to try to come forth with what information as what makes me racist or what have I said or what have I done, they've got nothing. They've adopted that fucking herd mentality, and the fucking problem is that these morons, these fucking head cases, most of them looking like they're fucking entitled white fucking chicks, they're not able to say anything to him about, you're a racist, you said this. They're showing a screenshot of him. This is the proof, this is the guilt that you were confronted and someone called you a racist, end of story, guilty, that's it, done. How's that for fucking rant blaze out of the gate? Holy shit. Hey, talk about coronavirus. All right. Cheers. It really, really fucking sickens me. Here's a comment I left, and this is how I felt. This is disgraceful, to say the least, not to mention the insanity of the bullshit of the Antifa head cases, spewing such hate and vitriol themselves. Sadly, this is part of the plans in regard to a problem-reaction solution. This is a proverbial Hegelian dialectic at play right in front of our eyes. So the herd is unmotivated, or the herd is motivated to act as they are, but they're unknowing that they're part of the problem that they're protesting against. Little do they know, for the most part, they are useful idiots for the powers that ought not to be. And it was a shameful, fucking shameful exhibition and Orwellian doublespeak by the goddamn cops that were ushering Dan to a safety, only to try to get him to agree to be put in a vehicle, and then they arrested him for disturbing the peace, only to be released 3 hours fucking later. You're free to go, Mr. Dix. So, bullshit. They don't know of his tireless efforts over the decade, and are obviously unknown to these mindless fucking idiots of this faction. Society as we know it is fucked, period. That's what's got me all fucking worked up. That's what I'm seeing. This is happening to people I know. This is some sort of plague on the mindset of the masses, as they are so easily manipulated. Go this way, go this way, go this way, act this way, act this way, act this way. They're all running around with their little fucking mask on, like COVID is some kind of fucking deadly disease. Then they're fucking getting in people's faces, crowding them, approaching them. Social distancing, you're not maintaining 6 feet. Then they're shoving their fucking phones in people's faces. Stop recording me, as they're fucking recording people. The insanity of this is going to reach a head. It's like a giant fucking zit. Just squeeze it, and eventually that fucker's gonna pop, and that shit is gonna be all over the place. And up in Canada, yeah, the monkeys up here, no offense to monkeys, I love them, it's monkeys, but the fucking monkeys, the Muppets up here, are they themselves going to facilitate the next level of repression? Average-minded folks sitting at home thinking, look, it's going on the TV. Those people are crazy, and they're looting businesses, and they're doing this, that, and the other thing. Oh my goodness, they should call on the National Guard or the military, and the police should tear gas them goddamn protesters. I'll tell you what. People are going to get to the point where they're going to want to let that happen. Problem, reaction, solution. And you got to know the powers that ought not to be have got a lot of solutions lined up for you. And in the grand scheme of things, at the end of the day, the government's going to do what the government's going to do, and they've got a history of fucking over and manipulating people. So the people, whether it's your race, your religion, whatever your culture may be, the people need to stick together. But religion, race, those are two of the big things they use to manipulate and tweak the populations around the world. Control, restrict, and regulate. Holy fuck, I'm done. See you later. Coronavirus. All right.